We acknowledge this land we meet on is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. We extend respect to the cultural authority of all Aboriginal and First Nations people.
Oscast.
Amy And is a podcast that explores all kinds of bookish things, and that can include some pretty adult content. So please be aware that some of this content will be not safe for work or for young ears, and be careful who's listening when you are.
Welcome back to another episode of Amy And, our monthly live book club. This month we were reading Feast While You Can by Mikaella Clements and Onjuli Datta. With us today we have Abby.
Hello.
We've got Justina.
Hi.
We've got Harry.
Hi.
We've got Peyton.
Hey.
I'm Millie, and you will notice the absence of our fearless leader, Amy. She couldn't make it tonight, so we're going to try and stay on topic and be
Let's
very
get
professional and sound so intelligent the whole time, and we will finish on time everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if one of my comrades wouldn't mind reading out bio and blurb, or blurb and then bio, whichever you prefer.
All right. So, I mean, I'm sure everyone here, everyone watching, if you've joined us already, has read the book, but in case you haven't, this is Feast While You Can. There is a monster inside of Angelina Sicco. All she wants is to walk her mongrel dog, hold court with her brother in their local dive bar, and bait hot queer women to her sleepy conservative hometown, Caden's. The problem is, so does the monster. It wants what Angelina has done. It wants what she's going to do. It wants to eat her whole life and every version of every future she might have with it. Until it possessed her, the famous monster of Caden's lived deep in a pit inside the mountain. But on the night that Angelina runs into her brother's ex, the sternly handsome Jagvi, the monster rises, hungry and ready to eat. Its claws comb through her private thoughts, her most intimate and traumatic memories. Only Jagvi's touch repels it, and the monster feasts on all the mess that makes up a life. And Angelina Sicco's has never looked tastier. What will Angelina do to protect her future, and just how much will it cost her? And then there's a lot of great blurbs on the back here from authors who like it.
I like the first one, Messy Lesbians.
This is beautiful, greedy, and terrifying. This book makes an intimate home for itself right alongside your bones.
Oh, that's good.
Anyway,
That's a good one.
So Mikaella Clements and Onjuli Datta are the co-authors of The View Was Exhausting and Feast While You Can. Mikaella's writing has appeared in the New York Times, The Guardian, Hazlitt, Catapult, and more. And she was shortlisted for the 2019 Gailey Beggar Press Prize and the 2018 Bridport Short Story Prize. Onjuli's work has been published in The Billfold and The Daddy magazine. Mikaella is originally from Australia and Onjuli from England. They are married and live together in Berlin. And we interviewed them this month as well, which was so exciting.
That's right. Do not forget to listen to that because it's so interesting and so fun.
I listened to it after reading the book, because the first time I listened to it, I hadn't finished the book yet. And going back and looking at it now, I was like, woof.
I feel like we have to address the elephant in the room.
So for those
the
listening later and not watching the YouTube video, we've all got some spooky backgrounds because it's Halloween.
Did not see that. I was busy doing my professional duty.
Has uploaded the image of a very spooky man. He's got little devil horns and a little devil tail. And he's sort of showing us his naked back and sort of flexing in a very enticing way, which is so appropriate for the lesbian book.
Okay, what's very funny
enticing is an interesting way of putting it.
I felt like
I tried to be generous.
I felt like all of the ones of sexy women demons were objectifying. So
when it's a man, it's okay.
It's okay. It doesn't matter.
I'd like to say a minute
That's
ago
right.
we said that we'd stay on track, we'd keep it professional because Amy
Right.
wasn't here.
Who made the snack and the drink?
Oh,
I made neither, but I do have a snack and a drink. So I didn't have time to go to the shop. So I was rummaging around my cupboards looking for something I already had. And so I have this, which is like espresso martini.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Because I had the stuff from when we did espresso
from us.
martinis that academia.
I also did a Justina, and I didn't make the drink of the month and reused like just alcohol I had from other drinks that we have made throughout the year. I wanted it to be red because it's got cranberry juice in it, and it turned out very pink. So I feel like that's the romance side of it, but it's just like vodka lemonade.
I've got pink lemonade, so
yeah,
close
that's pretty much
enough.
what I made.
It's like very diluted blood.
Mine is just plain lemonade, unfortunately. But
Not
I
even
do
any blood in it.
not even any blood in it. What's the point? I did sort of make the snack, but I just put chocolate on the popcorn. So
Oh, I'm
looks
so
amazing,
jealous.
The point of it is
Yeah,
really
it's
to
really
make it with
cute.
all your like leftover Halloween candy, which A, we
Yeah.
don't really do here so much,
Yeah.
and B, it hasn't been Halloween yet. So it's more of like just put whatever you've got in your cupboard on it.
Yes, I
It is
always have
very-
popcorn and chocolate. So
Very
it
funny.
worked out well.
Same.
That
Yeah.
only one of us drizzled chocolate over popcorn.
Yeah, I know.
Like the
The
easiest
levels of
snack
late.
of the month. And Peyton's like, I did it, and we're all like, oh no.
Yeah, I was too busy for
That's
that.
a bit tricky.
I will say we're very much talking about we'll get into the book, I promise. But talking about Halloween in Australia and like horror in general in Australia in October, we're very much the kind of family where it's like turn all the lights off, move the cars, and hide in the front of the
Yeah,
house.
exactly the same.
We don't get trick-or-treaters now, like since COVID, it just hasn't been a thing at all. But we're very much do not answer the door.
No.
When young families move into our area, sometimes we'll go, do you think they're going to be trick-or-treaters? And Dad goes, oh, I fucking hope not.
I did it once as a kid, and that was fun. And like a couple of people did have candy, and one guy didn't have any candy, lollies, we call them here. He didn't have any, so he gave us a whole pack of cans of Sprite.
Oh,
That we then had
perfect.
to. We're like 10. We're carrying around the neighborhood like.
That used to be the best
was
part, though.
pretty good score.
I trick-or-treated a little bit when I lived up in the top of Western Australia because it was quite a remote town. And so everyone kind of knows everyone to an extent. And it's always like, oh, no one prepared for Halloween, but here's a pack of chips. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a couple of muesli bars, whatever they've got in the cupboard. That's what my
Yeah.
mum would do.
I have only trick-or-treated once, and I was a kid, and me and my brothers wanted to go trick-or-treating, and my parents allowed us to go to one house, which was our grandma's house. So I walked to my grandma's house, and then she indulged us to have a trick-or-treating experience. But it's really not a thing in my area at all.
Yeah. My mum was always like, we don't celebrate that here. That's American.
Yeah, that's more my favorite
Okay.
side.
It sure is.
Why would I
That's
teach
what
my
mum would
kids to knock
say.
on strangers' doors?
It's an American thing.
My mum is simply too Catholic. She was like, why would you mess around with spirits and demons?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you mess around
Mess around.
with spirits
Mess
and
around.
demons?
speaking
Fool
of,
around
mess
with
around.
it.
Well, what would we call this? Would we call it a demon, a spirit?
Oh,
It's
this is
the
the
thing.
great opening.
It's the
Monster
thing
or
from the
something.
pit.
What do we take it as?
I think the thing/monster is a thing, isn't it? Like it. I would go more demon though. than
Category of its
spirit.
Yeah.
own.
I think it's
Yeah.
a demon because it has a physical manifestation almost.
Mm. I don't know. In the book they refer to it most often as a monster, which
Mhm.
probably covers it. But I do find it interesting the way it like straddles between being kind of corporeal and more psychological or spiritual, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. And because it had to get stronger too before it could
Mm.
have that real physical presence.
Yeah.
I almost at the end was almost kind of not disappointed, but like I wanted to know more about it, like how it had said it had been there. Like it was like, you're calling me old, but I've been here since the war. And I was like, what war? Tell me more about you.
Yeah,
How did
and
you
like the
get down
scene
there?
where, by the way, anyone watching / listening
Spoilers,
post or right
spoilers.
now, there will be spoilers. That's
Yeah.
what book
Read the
club's
book,
for.
It's book club.
Yeah. The scene where it makes her body run up to the mountain
Yeah.
and it says, I used to sit here. that sort of stuff. I'm like, okay, give me the lore.
Yeah, what does
Yeah.
that
Well,
mean?
yeah, I felt when it mentions the war, it also mentions like spears and stuff. So there's the implication that it's like, oh, I've been here since the war, but this war could have been like hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Mm.
family starts talking about like the Romans and the
Yeah.
peasants that settled and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, this is all really cool. I hope they dig into it and do some research and find out what the monster is. And then they sort of didn't.
Mm.
There's a kind of power in that ambiguity though in the end, because it recenters the focus once that happens on the lasting effects that the monsters had. And I was kind of like,
Mm,
oh, this is so nice. Like me not being able to theorize at all about what I would do in this situation because I have just as much information as they do. And I was like, oh, there's kind of
I
something.
also feel like there's a danger in over explaining a monster
oh,
in
definitely.
especially in horror, because you need some of that complete like inexplicability to
Mm.
keep that sense of like fear. I don't know, I feel like I need a
Mm.
bit of unknown, whereas when they start picking it apart and explaining too much of a monster, I stop being interested.
No, I think that's a fair point. I think it's a bit like a magic system, you know.
Mm,
The more you get into it, the less it becomes that kind of fantasy and more becomes that kind of almost scientific
mm.
kind of fantasy.
And then you always get to a point where, like, if you're, I mean, this is true of magic systems as well, when you're asking, oh, but how does that work? But how does that work? Where you have to just go, well, it's magic. Like,
Yeah.
so there's a
Yeah.
point where you can't keep explaining it. It has to be something unexplainable because it is something otherworldly.
So I
This
sort of
is an
had to sit with
extremely
that
strong
and
drink, by the way.
oh no,
So we'll see
sip
how this goes
slowly.
over the night.
By the end of the live.
Yeah.
You don't want to know what I really think?
I loved it. I thought it was a great book.
This
Oh,
is my
so
favorite
I
book club that we have done, I will say, if I can
I
be
really enjoyed it.
pick
Yeah.
favorites.
Oh my gosh,
Why
I'm gonna
not?
tell Amy.
Amy's not in the running because Amy
Yeah.
tops everyone. We know that.
It wouldn't
Or
be
I can say it
fair.
because Amy's not here.
Yeah.
Doubly true.
Gabby's second favorite book of the month.
Yes.
No,
I
we
do have a
really love them.
question for everyone, because we've kind of discussed during the month, the lines between horror and romance, and this is very much being marketed as a horror romance, and I would actually call this horror romance, even though I've been on the
Mm.
side of it's horror and romance not being certain books. But to me, this wasn't hugely scary. Like when I envision horror romance, I thought scarier than what this is.
Hmm.
Mm.
Oh,
It's a
Thoughts?
different type of horror, I think.
yeah.
It was a different type of, and it was completely different to what I expected because I thought that at the end of the day there would be a bigger emphasis on the really creepy aspects of the creature, but there wasn't.
Mm.
So instead, it was so psychological.
I thought it was scary, but to be honest, I don't tend to find books especially scary. Not that I've actually read an awful lot of horror, but I find like horror films scary in a way that books don't get me. But I think it had that horror vibe to it though. Like there
Mm.
is like fear. I felt the fear in the book is really palpable. And to me, actually Riley touched on this a bit in their episode of the podcast that they don't get scared by horror, but the idea that horror is a genre where the affect is to make the reader scared didn't really work for
Mm.
them. And I'm like, in
Mm.
this instance, I agree. Like to me, the horror of the situation and of the characters is really palpable, but I myself wasn't really scared.
I
Yeah.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Because I would argue this is definitely horror,
Hmm.
despite myself not being afraid, having famously said on the pod, if it makes me scared, then it is scary.
Well, because there's two kinds of horror in the book, right? There's that existential horror of being eaten and your future being eaten and then not existing in the minds of people anymore. And then the other fear that I found quite palpable was Angel's fear of when she couldn't control her body. So when
Mm.
the thing had taken over her body and it described her as being locked, and then like when it would speak for her and stuff, that felt very palpable to me. And extending from that, her fear of hurting other people via the thing. Not so
Yeah.
much like obviously she had that huge fear of hurting herself initially, but I feel like she kind of even moved past that into, oh no, now I'm going to start hurting other people as well. That felt very palpable to me. So
Yeah,
it's a
I think
different kind of fear, I think, different kind of horror.
there was that
I-
moment where she talks about how it's like kind of like she is breathing, but she's not that like that's all that she's doing, and she's
Yeah,
getting sucked
or the
further and further back into her body. And I'm like, oh, this is like that's quite suffocating as a fear. Like I was like, I understand how this is like a bit
the
squirmy.
bit where it had taken her up the mountain and she was describing had to take she felt like she had to take that really big breath and it just wouldn't, it kept her breathing steady. I was like,
Oh,
Oh yeah.
the bit that I found scariest was when she's trying to prove to Jagvi that it's real. And then Jagvi doesn't notice when Angelina is no longer the one in control of her words and actions. And then there's
yeah.
that conversation they're having where she's in her own head being like, can't you tell that I'm not here? And it was like, yeah, that bit got me. That was creepy.
And
Because we
I-
know that they're going to be together, right? I feel like that's pretty obvious from the second chapter that it's the two of them. And there's that trope of like, well, your true love is going to recognize that it's not you. And she just doesn't. She has no idea. Scary.
yeah, scary. And the idea that Angel never really knows when it's coming back. She knows kind of what stops it, but then that changes as well.
And
So,
because it
like,
can
yeah.
possess other people and objects that where it's
The dog.
like,
Oh,
no.
Oh, can we talk about the dog?
Oh,
Oh,
the
not
minute
Oh.
that you do I say what do I call the dog? Your
My dog.
Angel. The minute that
It's your
Angelina's
dog.
it's your dog, but that's what I'm saying. I can't say my dog, so do I say Angel's dog? The
dog.
minute that her dog came onto the page, I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
You don't want a dog in a horror film. And then it
Yeah.
starts using the dog to speak, and I was like,
Yeah.
gone.
The whole
couldn't-
scene,
couldn't
the
do
dog
it.
and Rick and like
Just thinking about
walking,
animals being confused by what's going on pains me so much.
Yeah.
It
You
actually
can't
made me
communicate
so
with them.
sad.
I was more
So
sad
sad.
in the moment where I was more sad about the dog being tethered in the yard, having no
Yeah.
idea, like, I didn't do any
Why?
of this
Yeah.
stuff.
Or in the cage, because it's like this dog's just gone through a really traumatic event and they can't even like comfort
Yeah.
because it's like it would rip their throats out.
Oh,
Yeah.
At that point, I'd be like, just kill me. I'll give you a hug. You can take me. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Truly. Actually, yes. If
Truly.
my pets got possessed by a demon, that would be my tipping point.
Yeah.
My cat is
Yeah.
possessed by a demon. I've just befriended it.
Peyton's cat is literally Beelzebub, so
Yeah.
True.
It is so interesting how different it is reading horror versus watching horror
yeah.
because it's like a completely different experience. But I guess like horror in film is quite new because film is new, whereas horror stories are like as old as time.
Yeah,
So it's
scary
interesting
stories.
yeah. I wonder how like oral horror stories also change the vibe.
Yeah,
well.
because
So it'd be
when I
different
was
again.
younger, I could not, because I'm not a horror fanatic in terms of, like, I cannot watch a horror film. I can't watch a PG-rated horror film. I have nightmares. It's terrible. And when I was younger, I could not listen to, like, those horror stories you would,
Yes.
tell around campfires, if that's the vibe.
Yeah.
But I can read horror and not be scared by it. And so there is something different
I wonder if
about
it's
it.
because when you're reading, you can take it at your own pace.
Mm.
Whereas if
There's a
somebody
level
else
of
is giving you
control.
the story, you have no control over
Yeah,
when
like
you
when
get
Angel
parts.
spots the monster for the first time in the mirror and then it changes chapter, I could close the book and be like, I will come back to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to process that for a while.
Yeah, that scared the shit out of me. Let me put that aside.
You can just kind of change how it looks in your head as opposed to it being like terrifying. You know, you're like, oh, it was probably just a flicker. Like it was just
I will say in the audiobook, the way the narrator reads the monster's voice is hot. So that
I said that to
It
Abby
is a little
before.
sexy. Yeah.
it's kind
So
of hot.
hot.
Off pod, Harry and I were discussing this because I said I listened to the interview that we did with the authors and I didn't understand the sexy vibe of the monster. Like I didn't find the monster particularly appealing. Maybe because the characters were so sexy on their own.
Yeah.
But then Harry was saying, yeah, you know, the audio does it for you. And I was like, oh.
There's this
Oh.
roughness that's done in the audiobook to the voice. And as it gets stronger, they layer the sound
Yeah.
on top. and it was like headphones in, sitting doing something, you would just stop whatever you were doing whenever the monster was talking, because it was so like audio, like, oh, it was so satisfying. And
Need to
I was
listen
like,
to it.
this is kind of hot. Like, I'm kind of getting the possessiveness now.
Yeah,
I'd be
truly.
like, I want to
Yeah.
lose this thing.
Narrated by Jacqueline Kelso.
Yeah.
So thank
Jacqueline
you.
Kelso, incredible
Yeah,
work.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the production value of that audiobook was so
Incredible.
good as well. It was
Mm.
amazing. Oh,
Mm.
I did think about how this would translate across to film when the dog was talking, and it's described that the dog obviously can't like keep up with like a human mouth pattern, so it's just kind of, but the voice was coming out. And I was like, I feel visually that would be less scary. It would be,
It might be comical.
yeah.
Well, there is the bit when the dog first starts talking. I mean, part of it is her sheer relief that Jagvi isn't hurt, but that she starts laughing in response. And then at first she's like, oh, it's like a cartoon character talking. And then she's like, but I kind of found those moments really good whenever, because the monster was not like trying to keep her scared. And it was always, I think, a fun, like from a reader perspective, a fun turn whenever she starts to drop her guard and either get too confident or start laughing or whatever, and then something then flips that makes you realize that this monster is monstrous. Like when the dog then attacks her brother, and it's like, oh, that whole time before the dog attacked her brother, this monster's just playing around with you.
I'm curious, when did people realize who the monster was really after?
Late.
Oh, it was quite early for me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There were two
because
moments.
that almost like made it worse, I feel, for me. Like it clicked quite early on, maybe like the second time it was going through her memories about Jag. And I went, oh, hang on a second. And then like the whole book I was just like, when are they gonna find out? Oh God. And that I just feel like I almost wish I hadn't known.
Yeah. You want to read through the book and you're like, it's not you.
It's not you. You're worrying about the wrong thing.
There were a couple moments, I think, that hinted at it enough that I was like, oh, this is what's happening. And I cannot, for the life of me, recall. I thought about it before we went into this that I wanted to bring it up. I cannot recall the first one, but the second one was when the monster first communicates with Jagvi. And it says, oh, we're finally talking. And I was like,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. But there was a moment earlier even than that where
for me, it was also quite late for me that I worked it out. It was more when we start learning about her mother and her dad.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, dad stuff.
Yeah.
I think the scene just before it starts screaming at them in the room, the kitchen or something. I was like, oh, and
in the mold of in the walls or something when it's doing the text.
Yeah, when it's just before that they're in the kitchen or something, and she's talking.
And it's like not robbed. He was delicious or whatever.
And it's going back to, she's like, oh, but all of that happened, so it needs to sleep, and like it won't be here for a while. And then Jagvi started talking, and I was like, oh no, hang on a second,
that was so Aussie of you.
Oh no! Oh no!
The condensation.
Speaking of, in terms of setting, I listened to the interview post reading the book, and in the interview they talk about how it's set in Italy, and I would not have guessed that whatsoever. I was just picturing I don't know, it was more American in my head. Maybe that's because that's my experience film-wise. We're fed so much American, particularly of those like kind of ruddy, ugly towns where this is sort of set. And I knew it wasn't America because of the names of the characters. But
one of them has a vineyard or something. Somebody brings wine, and I was like, oh, that's very Italian. And then I remembered that thing, because until that point I had been picturing it in America. But then I remembered that thing that Amy said the other day about it was really obvious to her that it was set in Italy, but might not be obvious. But the authors often get comments of like, oh, I didn't know that this was set in Italy. And so I remembered, I was like, oh, that's right. And all the mountains and stuff. That's right. But I had truly forgotten and thought I was like, oh, this is America. That's right. And I wonder if it's because we just see so much set in America.
In my mind as well, because this is bad on my part that I don't read a lot of Australian fiction. So my default isn't even, oh, this is Australia. my
Mm.
default for everything is this is
Yeah.
American until I'm told otherwise, which is a lot to unpack in that. That's not for
Yeah,
book
Probably don't
club.
have time for that.
We don't have
but-
time for that, but that's kind of where my
I
brain
get
goes.
you. Yeah.
I did like that you could place cadens really anywhere, regardless of where you lived, though.
Yeah.
So I could picture it as being somewhere that was out rural and probably be
Yeah.
totally, and like it would still work as a story. If that's
there's a
not
level of like
cadens as.
insular small town with its own local
Mm.
mythologies
Yeah,
that is a little bit like you could be anywhere in the world. Like
Yeah.
a lot of places have that vibe.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
like their one pub and the one mechanic and
yeah, and
that
not in the way
stuff.
that it wasn't fleshed out, but just in the way that I was like, oh, I feel like I could place this in many. I did.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like it's a very universal thing, that small town
Yeah.
thing.
Which was intentional as well. So
And it
Yeah.
worked really well. And I don't know, how did you imagine the pit? This is one of the things that I left like the book afterwards going like, I imagine it like this, but then we got to the end of the book and I was like, no, hang on a second. I feel like I'm picturing something completely different.
I
Like
just
was like,
imagine deep in a
oh,
cave and then the floor suddenly dropping off and you
Yeah,
can't
me
see
too.
anything.
Big
Yeah.
hole.
Yeah,
big
I was like,
hole.
a
Oh,
big
bottom.
hole in the ground.
Yeah. I don't know. I was like getting up there and the mountain and like where Jagvi lived. I was like thinking, whatever that weird movie is, Unfortunate Something, where the kids go to the
Oh, a series of unfortunate
series of
events.
unfortunate events. I was picturing Jagvi's house as like this one on stilts, like up in this mountain.
What?
And the way that the way it like crashed down, I was like, it just
You're
seemed
you're
like
picturing a
awful.
Queenslander. Like
Yeah. I was like, I was getting so many mixed vibes, and then I was trying to imagine what what the pit would feel like, and I was like, but it's old, and it's not like some like I can't imagine they've just thrown this thing there. Surely there's like runes and stuff around there, and then there is a mention of there being like paintings or something like that on the cave walls, and I was like, okay, so maybe I'm picturing a little bit more ancient and a little bit more like slightly architectural. But
You know, every time
maybe I'm
Architectural. Harry, it's a cave with a hole in it.
you're imagining a hole in the ground.
It's a cave with a hole in it. I don't know where you got architectural from.
often the holes in the ground are
imagining-
made by like tectonic movements or like
Yeah.
water erosion. So it doesn't. I wasn't imagining a handmade hole. I was imagining a
But what
homegrown.
No
what
one's
I'm
in there
imagining-
carving out the walls.
No, I was getting like rune vibes.
What
Or
I'm
what-
imagining now that we've said the pit so many times is because I'm finna be in the
Pit,
pit. What's her name? Is it Brooke? Is her name Brooke or something? Because I'm just imagining her as the monster at the
pretty sure
bottom
it's
of
a
the
white
pit.
girl
Finna be in
name,
the
so
pit.
yeah.
I'm finna be in the pit, and everyone going, ah! You know?
My
I would not
very-
want her hanging over my shoulder, I must say.
Stay down there.
My very
Stay in the
millennial
pit.
reference is Parks and Rec when there's like the pit and then he sings like the song and I fell in the pit.
I didn't expect it to get into the horror so quick. And I was like, oh, okay, because I didn't know anything about the book going in. I didn't really read the blurb and I haven't listened to anyone talk about it. So I was like, I don't actually know what the horror of the book is, except that it's got something to do with eating because of the title. So when they were like, the pit, and then the pit spoke to her, I was like, okay, that was
And
it.
when it opens with them telling horror stories, anytime any horror film, or not even horror film, anytime any film has characters tell a spooky story, I was like, you guys don't even realize that now it's gonna happen.
That's right. You've spoken it into
You've
being.
made
Why
it
would they write
happen.
you like this?
These characters don't even realize they're in a narrative.
I don't know you're in a book.
I really liked the community that they built around the myth and stuff though, with the Sicko women, and them being all like badass women, but with their own like troubles and problems and stuff. So that when it comes to the fact that she's been possessed, well, like yeah, like possessed or consumed, that they're all like they've all got their different ways of showing up to support her.
There's a level I felt of betrayal though, when you realize how many of her family actually know what's happening, but they're like so like, well, this is what happens. Now we just let it play out.
Yeah.
Like that they are
Yeah, when they're like, it's Angel or her, Jag, that bit when I think it's her uncle that says it, and I was just like, you bastard.
Yeah.
But of course, right? Like, of course they're going to prioritize her
Totally,
because
yeah.
she's their family. And that thing about the sickos being mostly boys and very, very few girls being born into the family, and so that's what makes them special. But like, you can tell that there is something wrong with Caro. Like you can,
Yeah,
you just
Karen.
like there's something wrong with this woman, not just because she's flighty or all that sort of stuff, but just like, yeah, there were some points of description of her where I was just like, oh, what has happened here? There's something in the background of the mother that is going to come to light. And
Yeah,
that was such an interesting reveal about how she had just hadn't even really thought about it and had given in to the monster, you know, and spoilers, but thrown in her lover. I suppose he wasn't a husband or anything. But then you can't feel guilty about it because you don't remember that they existed. So there's a real horror to that too, a very existential horror of you've done this terrible thing, but
Oh yeah.
you can't feel
Yeah.
guilty about
And
it
it's
because you
also-
don't
Speaking of
remember it.
Speaking of
Mm.
moments that were spooky, when they're asking her to describe him and she can't, and she gets more and more distressed, and then she's just like, he was like nothing. That's what he was like. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is spooky. Yeah.
And that moment
And
as
also,
he speaks and says that, like, you know, she can't do it because I took that, like I took it from her. But there's that moment between there where Angel's like, my God, like, Kara, you're awful, like you're awful person. How
that's
terrible.
so mean.
Yeah, that's shocking, weren't you? And the beast is like,
No, she's literally got no memories of him.
I feel like the characterization in this novel was so good to talk to Kraft. Like I feel like the grip that they had on these characters was so insanely good that as someone who writes, I was very jealous.
Yeah.
Like I felt like the authors writing these characters knew them in and out so well, which is what you do as a writer, but I was like, damn, I wish I could have that much. Like
and they
They're
were
so
so
specific.
distinct from each other.
Yeah.
And then to
Yep.
be like, damn it, and you're married, and just like, God damn it, and it's co-written.
And you're living in Berlin.
Yeah, you fuckers, like,
How is any of that fair?
It is
But
amazing.
One day.
to give credit to Own Voices books, I loved how unapologetically sexual it was. Because you know me, I have the gripe with lesbian smut books, and if we can call them that, because they're so cottagecore, we barely touch each other, and oh gosh, we're so giggly. Whereas this was just like, they have sex, they
It
do
was-
it.
Yeah.
They do it.
But
And they
yeah, this book has
out.
really good sex scenes in it.
Yeah.
One of them's butch, but like actually a real butch. I was so
strap-ons
excited.
and packers and reclaiming a bunch of words that have been used derogatorily towards lesbians for decades. I was like, oh, there was so much beautiful queerness in this. Completely agree. Own Voice, like, just hit the ball out the park.
And also that tension between them of both being othered in different ways, except clearly having totally different experiences in the town, even though they have shared experiences of being queer and being people of color. So then, I found that really interesting, because then it does that like representation in a way. I don't know. Sometimes I don't like talking about representation because I find it can be a really simplistic way of talking about books. But I did like this. This was showing how depth and how individualized people's experiences are, even of the same places and people. And that's something that Angelina has to reckon with a lot, is reminding herself that her experiences in the town are not the same as Jagvi's. I don't know. Yeah, I found that really fascinating. And just that experience of being in this small town and then both desperately trying to find a queer community or build one out of from scratch.
And that of their completely different experiences of the town, I loved that it didn't juxtapose them as this one's right, this one's wrong. They're both very true and very valid. They can love this town and hate this town. They can stay in this town or leave this town. They're both valid and correct.
Yeah, and the two different responses to it too, where Jagvi was just like, I have to leave, I can't be here anymore. Whereas Angelina was very much about, I love that bit where she talks about bending the town to her will, because obviously that feeds into the stuff that happens at the end of the book as well. But talking about how she very carefully introduced queerness as a concept to the town so that when she was out, it wasn't so weird and people didn't make remarks to her anymore. And then at the end, I loved how that came full circle, because now that Jagvi's living in the town, Angelina makes sure that no one's making remarks about Jag. I loved that as well.
Yeah.
I
That
also
kind of
felt
like full
like,
circle thing.
yeah, on that same note, I love the both possessive and protectiveness of just the way Angelina functions. And as you read the book, you realize more and more how much of her behavior is this possessiveness.
Mm.
But like when she sort of realizes that, she's like, oh, has this been the thing I've been crafting? Of that, even when there are people in the town who are more bigoted, they'll be like, oh, that's just one of Angelina's people. And it's like there's almost an ownership on that. Like she owns this thing and she's created a space where the, like, I don't know, her name and her existence is both a protective thing and a thing where it belongs to her.
Yeah, like speaking
That's
of
why
brought up, she says, I'm going to rule the town or something
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm going to bend it to my will, I'm going to rule it. And she's like, ha, 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 ha. And then she goes, no, genuinely, that's it.
Yeah.
Genuinely, this is number one
Genuinely.
on the gay agenda.
Yeah, she's like, they're literally sitting on like the porch swing or whatever it is, I think, when they're in the city. And she's like, no, like, no shit. Like, that's my plan.
That is one good thing, one accurate thing about the queer experience in the book, is that the first item on the agenda is to take over everyone's towns and
Exactly. Yeah. And to indoctrinate people.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
That's
like,
right. Yeah.
One queer night at a pub at a time.
I'll admit that I thought that the ending, so I really liked the way that the like second to last chapter ended, and I was like, oh, what a what a great way to stop the story, as is very typical of a horror book. But then that last chapter, like future, I think it was, obviously it counted up in the numerals, and then it went to future, and I was like, such an interesting idea as well, is to have one like totally named chapter. And then that was so, I'm not used to getting that kind of closure from a horror book.
I feel like that's the romance, right? Like it
Yeah.
felt like
Yeah.
here is the romance chapter that solidifies it as a romance because it has the happily ever after, which
Yeah.
I would classify this as a happily ever after. I've looked at reviews
Same.
since, as you do when you
Yeah,
read a book.
Definitely.
And people say that it isn't, but I
Those people are boring.
really?
I'm sorry.
yeah, people
Why?
have gripes with the ending, and I don't understand why, because I
But they're
felt
together.
And
It's
they're
been
both
happy.
really happy.
Yeah.
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 What else
I
do
was
you
very
need?
satisfied with it.
I
My only
like-
gripe was that I didn't love, although I got the vibe that he was going to come around, but I didn't love, because the relationship between Angel and her brother was so important to me throughout the whole novel. And I didn't love the way that it ended for them at the end, but I did get the understanding it was kind of going to come back together. But then Angel's also not really Angel fully anymore. I don't know.
Well, I feel like
Yeah.
the read I got on that relationship at the end was that not just that Angel has sort of changed quite fundamentally, but also that her concept of time has changed, in that it doesn't feel as pressing that in this present moment their relationship is a bit tense, because the idea that at a future moment he will be okay again doesn't feel distant, because time is this compressed and layered thing to her now, because she eats futures and like, so it's
Well, there you go. Now I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
I just need someone to talk me through it. We're all good. Not in a.
Can I just say, by the way, while we're being silly,
Listen to the audiobook, Abby.
Yeah, my
Not
God.
even monster
I'm going
voice.
to. I am going to.
I've loved watching Abby get more and more creepy as
I know. We talked about this
Fading.
before
Into darkness.
we went live, that because I didn't have a light on, it's going to slowly get darker. But I didn't realize that the green screen was going to work on me less and less. So my outline has become like this wobbly
We're just losing
black.
more and more.
I'm
Abby.
becoming the thing, you know?
Yeah.
With the
Becoming one with
she
the
should just
woods.
change her transparency throughout the whole thing and just gradually like fade off.
Just become a ghost.
Yeah, like
I did
love it so
consider
much.
turning my thing off so I could bring a light round, and I was like, are we too far gone?
I love it.
It's
It's really
spooky.
like hoa, hoa, hoa,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know.
You think you can outrun me?
Say it.
How long have you been 17?
On speaking to the ending, I think that, yes, you're right, Abby, in saying that I think that that's the romance portion of it that comes through clutch at the end there. But then also, it's so interesting to see the post effects of a horrifying situation on a couple given in such detail. Because we go through, a couple days. I think it's actually really long, the time span of that last chapter, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely not a couple days.
Yeah.
It's
No,
feels
like,
way longer.
it was way
But
longer.
time feels
Yeah.
kind of spooky wooky.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I meant days as in like a lot of moments of those two
Yes,
together, and
yes.
what happens in turn, like how it changes their relationship, and how Jagvi is just, kind of like so infatuated with Angelina, and this new form of Angelina that she kind of still recognizes and still loves wholeheartedly. And I was like, oh, when it ended, I was like, oh, I feel like I've got no questions unanswered. Like, this
Yeah.
is a really satisfying end to this book. Like, I felt really like warm over it.
Well, I liked that it sort of, yeah, it does that balance, in my opinion, really well of horror and romance, because there is still like a horrifying element of the ending, but it is still, I think, a happy ending, and I still think a romantic one.
The
So
feeding,
yeah,
so this, like, the idea of the feeding in the end, in that last chapter on each other, I was like, is one, the audiobook, again, I'm telling you, it's kind of sexy. Like, it's kind of and she's like, have you got a week? And she's like, yeah, I'll take
You
that
guys
from
don't
you.
know, but I'm listening to it right now.
That's why her smile.
Uh-oh.
So I'm not really talking anymore.
But
yeah, let us
it-
know when the monster makes the first appearance, Abby.
Oh, you'll notice.
Just
the
skip to the end
raspy.
of the third chapter. Just let us know what you think.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
no, I don't think it would have been a satisfying ending if they just sort of neatly defeated every horrifying element and then just sort of ended up together and gone off and, I don't know, done something. Like, I think it needs the horror element to feel satisfying when it's a mix of both genres.
Agreed. If we'd gone to the sappy stuff afterwards, I don't think I would have been as satisfied. But
And
yeah.
also, I kind of forgot that it was a romance actually listening through it, because I was so focused on the horror and like, oh God, what's gonna happen? So I forgot that there probably would be a happy ending. So when it got to the future chapter, I was like, oh, thank God, actually.
Yeah.
But there's bits throughout the book where Angelina talks about already having changed and how the thing had lived inside her too long that she'd already started to change. So even at that point, I was like, oh my God, what's she gonna look like at the end? What is she gonna be? And I think it was honestly such a great ending for her. Like, I was actually so jazzed by her eating the thing and becoming the thing's replacement, sort of. I was like, this is so good.
There was a moment in that ending where I actually didn't, because I figured it would have to have a happy ending, but I really wasn't sure where it was going to go, where she turned around and I'm really disappearing on the screen. It's actually insane. If you're not watching this visually, I am disappearing.
If you're listening, please picture Abby like fading into the woods and being like eaten by fog.
I'm trying not to
It's
laugh.
actually crazy. Oh my God. It's getting worse even now as I talk.
When you started, it was
Disappearing
just
into the forest.
It's like,
What was I
really
even
like
saying
how-
now?
Too much,
Oh,
Abby.
there's a
It's
moment there
changed you.
at the edge of the pit. I'm going to try really hard to work through this. There's a
you've got
moment
this.
there at the edge of the pit where Angel kind of finally gains control, but turns around and starts devouring Jag. And I was like, oh God. Like, I thought that we were going to pivot now, but it's just gotten worse. And like, the people who were watching this are also reacting, and like, her brother is horrified, which is part of why he kind of needs to distance himself, I think, because he's like, I saw you turn around.
I
and
saw you
eat
try to eat my
Jag.
best friend.
Yeah.
Because we talked with Riley in their episode with us about how the queer happy ending for queer horror romance doesn't have to look like everybody else's happy ending, and it can be that they both end up being monsters, or actually they both die, but that's okay because it's still happy. So with that in mind, I got to that bit where she turns and then starts to eat Jag, and I was like, oh no, it's gonna be one of those endings.
I thought it was going to be a double pitfall, to be honest. I thought both.
Yeah, like she was going to take her into the pit with her or something.
But
so all in all, a pretty happy ending, actually.
Yeah.
actually,
well, I mean, I feel like that thematically and like symbolically, the idea of monstrousness is so like intertwined with queerness in a lot of ways, and also with like blackness and brownness in a lot of these horror narratives. So having an ending where she really embraces her monstrousness and is empowered by it is something that I thought was like, there's something almost like what's positive Schadenfreude? Like, you feel like emboldened by reading this, like, hell yeah. I'm exactly as awful as you say I am. And watch out.
I'm not sure. It just sounded like a really sick set of powers.
Yeah.
At the end. Like, I was like, wow, she's got this down to the bone. Like, she knows exactly how to use them, use these gifts. It was impressive.
She's thriving.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
thriving. And like, you know what? Maybe was it a good trade-off? I think so.
Yeah, she's the
Definitely.
perfect person to end up that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. Especially because she's quite satisfied, I think, living in the town and being with Jagvi. That like if she was dissatisfied with those things, it would probably be a lot more worrying.
Yeah, yeah, very
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
I want to know, and this is me now selfishly thinking into my thesis research, like what are the queer elements of this like romance that you think could be like brought into romance generally? Like, I know there are a lot of queer romances, and we've talked before about how some of them feel like they're just following a set of conventions, and some of them actually seem like they're trying to push back against things. Yeah, like what is something from this book that you would want to read more of in other books, whether it's in a horror romance or just a regular romance or just a regular horror?
Maybe imperfect characters, but not in a imperfect like, oh, I'm happy with the ending of this story in spite of their imperfections, but really liking the imperfections, like liking the monstrosity of Angel at the end.
I was
I
going to say
I
more give
dig
and
that.
take, which aligns, I think, with what you're saying. Like, I would like to see more romantic couples that are equal with the give and take, because I found that both of them were very different, but they were very equal in the relationship. They were both offering very different things to each other.
I think as well, and I think this is something that you guys have spoken about, which is where I'm picking it up from. But I also think that in general, this book didn't feel like it was trying to create the perfect representation of what queer was. And I think that often when I'm reading a queer romance, like particularly contemporary queer romance, it feels like it's spoon feeding me like this is good representation, which feel free to disagree with me there. But this book didn't feel like it was doing that. It was just these characters were queer, and that was that. I don't know. There was something in it that
These
didn't
little,
feel.
I've got tags. They're actually only bits that I've tagged where they've put in little bits of like queer and lesbian culture that I really enjoyed and like was like, ah, yes, I know about that one. But it didn't feel like you said force fed. I feel like in a lot of contemporary queer romances, it's almost like it feels almost like name dropping, but you're doing it with culture to be like, get it? Because I'm in the queer community or I'm in the lesbian community. And it feels very like, here's your culture, take it, spoon fed.
Or
Whereas this was
occasionally
just
like
like,
a PSA segment where they're like,
yeah,
and of course,
exactly.
gender can be blah 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 blah. Yeah, there's like
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas this
Just
just felt
signpost
very
things.
natural. And they've just
They feel
really,
like real people. Not that the other characters
yeah.
in the other contemporary queer romances don't
Yeah.
feel that way. But I feel like there's something about then removing it from, like, I feel like we should have more queer representation within other genres, like it's doing here, and queer romance within other genres, rather than just queer romance as queer romance. Because
Agreed.
adding the horror aspect maybe helped in that regard.
I
Yeah.
agree. I feel like the horror gives permission for that imperfection and for the messiness. And like Harry, when you were talking about like them being equals, I think one thing that struck out to me is that they're both actually very possessive and jealous people.
Yeah.
But that isn't played as like something they have to overcome. It's almost like something that makes them able to resist this monster because they're like two freaks who are obsessed with each other, which
Yeah,
is
so
my
obsessed with
favorite
each other.
dynamic in any romance.
Yeah,
People
it
obsessed with each
reminds
other.
me of Gideon in the Ninth, in the way that Gideon in the Ninth isn't a romance specifically, but it's like a big sci-fi romp, but they are lesbians.
Yeah.
And like
Yes.
it's doing something very similar, I feel, in the joining of romantic elements and sci-fi.
Because it meant that
Yeah.
those moments that would have been dumb in a cliche sense, like were the furthest thing from it. Like Angel telling Jagvi to stay away when she's possessed because like I'm gonna fucking eat you. And then there's like and countless other moments throughout the novel where she's just like, shut up, I'm gonna do it. Like, shut up, this is happening. And it wasn't like a like ooh da boo da boo. Like it wasn't like a little, like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like a little like bubba bubba like squish squish kind of like vibe. It was just like no, they felt like real people. She was like, shut the fuck up. This is gonna happen. I'm gonna do this right now. We're in danger. We're just gonna get it done. Okay. And I was like, this is like they're in love. Like this is love.
Yeah.
It felt really real.
Yeah, it
trust
said
the
like, I
lesbians
love
to
you
get
so
shit
much that I
done,
want to like
you know?
crawl into your rib cage and live there.
And
I'm
live
like,
there,
yes,
yeah.
it's
But then
true
they
love.
did
I love
things like
it.
mention like packers. Like I didn't know what a packer was before I read this book, so I had to look it up. But it wasn't like they were like, this is a packer. Like Angel wasn't like she wasn't turning to the screen being like, now it's time to explain.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Which they do. So many gay books are
They
like now
do.
a
It's
one-on-one
so
on
bad.
dildos. And you're like,
I had that.
it was just
I
like
had that marked
there's
down.
a packer. Like her packer was obvious in her pants as she was making me like breakfast. And it was like then there was a throwaway line about there was a line about I've loved loved Jagvi's dick even through all of its variations. And it's just like like that's just how it, and then a line about how I think it was like what do straight women do when they find
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it was like, are they stuck with it? Like that
Yes.
sounds
They have to live with one size
with
forever.
one
Yeah.
side. Yeah. What if they
So
don't like
funny.
it? And I was like, all of these lines were just so beautifully queer. And
It
you're
was
right.
great. It felt like conversations I have with my friends.
Yes.
Mm.
And
Which is, yeah.
I was reading and I went like, oh, okay, a packer is obviously like, I think that's what this is, but I'm interested. So I was like, oh, okay, that's what a packer is. Cool. But I don't
Yeah.
need to learn that from the book. I should be able to just Google it if I want to. You don't need to tell me what it is. And if they had,
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't have been as impactful. So
It feels like
Impact.
I was
maybe
going to
the
make that
kinds of-
joke and then I was like, I'll let it go.
Never.
It feels like the kinds of books that we're talking about or that Abby was talking about before, it's like some of them talk to you too much, whereas this one is just immersive. Like it just lets you
Yeah.
in rather than
Yeah.
addresses you all the time.
Doesn't
Like
treat
you're
you like an idiot.
yeah.
Like if you
Yeah.
don't know what something is, Google it.
And it's so much more,
but-
I mean, I don't want to like talk down on any other style of writing, but I personally just find this so much more interesting. You know, like I enjoy books when the representation, again, like that word feels so reductive, but when it's just like this, it's just
Yeah. Yeah.
just
As
immersive,
always,
just-
we've hit on the very deep, interesting points right as we have to wrap up.
Yeah, we're good like that.
So thank you to anyone who tuned in and to anyone who's listening later. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Justina, Harry, Peyton, Abby, me. Tune in next week. Watch our Instagram. We will tell you what the book of the month is for next month, but we'll next week. So look out for that. And we should have an After Dark episode up next week as well, all about horror again.
a bonus.
The spooky month.
Amy And is hosted by Amy Matthews, Abby Guy, Peyton Hogan, Justina Ashman, Harry Stewart and Millie Heffernan. This podcast is recorded on Gardenland with music by Anthony Wignall and Mass Wisteria. Our logos and branding are designed by Abby Guy. This episode was edited by Abby Guy.